Ever heard that phrase, the blue wall of silence?
Hmm.
It's this whole idea that law enforcement kind of protects their own even
Yeah.
when they've done wrong.
Yeah.
And today we're going to deep dive into the story of Katrina Cook Brownlee.
Okay.
She was shot 10 times
Oh.
by her ex-fiancé,
Oh my gosh.
who was a correction officer.
Oh, wow.
We're looking at this blog post on Investor.
Okay.
It's this online platform with like all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And
Yeah.
honestly, this story,
Yeah.
it just stays with you.
Wow.
So our mission today is
Yeah.
to really try and understand not just the what happened,
Right.
but how like systemic issues and
Yeah.
power dynamics play into these situations.
Yeah.
And also just Katrina's incredible resilience,
Right.
facing this horrible adversity.
Yeah.
So let's start with Katrina.
Okay.
She was living in the Brevoort projects in Brooklyn,
Okay.
just 22 years old, single mom, struggling, trying to make a better life for her 2 kids.
Yeah.
And then she meets this correction officer, Irvin.
Okay.
And, at first,
Yeah.
he seems like a decent guy, right?
Right.
Someone that could provide some stability,
Uh-huh.
maybe a way out,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's,
Yeah.
sadly something that abusers really kind of prey on
Yeah.
when someone is, especially in a vulnerable position.
Yeah.
That promise of security is like
Yeah.
the most powerful tool for control.
Yeah. You can totally see how she might have felt like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
this is my break.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, of course, things go south.
Right.
Irvin becomes abusive.
Okay.
And this is where that blue wall of silence
Yeah.
really comes in.
Yeah.
The blog post mentions Katrina calling the police multiple times.
Wow.
But because Irvin was a correction officer,
Right.
nothing really happened.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's, it's hard to know for sure
Yeah.
in any individual case
Yeah.
how much someone's badge
Right.
really kind of shielded them.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that this blue wall of silence
Yeah.
is a very real thing.
Yeah.
It's this unspoken code
Right.
to protect each other.
Yeah.
And it can be so difficult
Yeah.
for victims to come forward.
Especially when
Yeah.
the abuser's law enforcement.
Exactly, yeah.
It wasn't even just about reporting the abuse.
Right.
It got to a point where she felt like her life was in danger.
Wow.
She was actually pregnant when she finally left Irvin
Oh, wow.
and escaped to a motel,
Okay.
but she was having money problems
Right.
and had to get in touch with him.
Yeah.
And that's when he lured her back to his place.
Oh, gosh.
And this is where it gets really scary.
Right.
This is where we see how calculated this all was.
Yeah.
He didn't just snap.
Right.
He set a trap.
Yeah, that is really disturbing.
Okay, so the attack itself, her ex-fiancé didn't just shoot her once.
Right.
He shot her 10 times.
Gosh.
And he reloaded his gun
Oh, my gosh.
during the attack.
Wow.
It feels like just pure rage.
Yeah.
But I also keep thinking,
Yeah.
this wasn't just random violence.
Right.
This was domestic violence.
Right.
But it was made worse by his position.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It wasn't just like a moment of anger.
Right.
There's these psychological dynamics that happen
Right.
when the abuser is in a position of authority.
Yeah.
The victim might be more hesitant to fight back,
You're right.
to question them,
Yeah.
or even to believe that what's happening is wrong.
Right.
It can be really hard to escape.
Yeah, and the attack itself, the blog post really gets into the details.
Oh, gosh.
She was crawling for her life while he was taunting her.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
I mean, you work with these types of cases all the time.
Yeah.
How often do you see this level of brutality? Sadly, way more than people realize.
Right.
Domestic violence is often about this power and control.
Right.
And sometimes the violence escalates
Yeah.
to maintain that dominance.
Yeah.
And the fact that he reloaded
Right.
shows he wanted to make sure she didn't survive.
It's just horrible.
Yeah.
How can someone who's supposed to protect people
Right.
do something like that?
Yeah. I mean, it really is the paradox
Right.
of the blue wall, right?
Yeah.
It can lead to this culture of feeling above the law.
Yeah.
And that can have just devastating consequences.
We've talked about the attack in the Blue Wall.
Yeah.
But the blog post also mentions this thing called her dying declaration.
Oh, right.
What is that?
So a dying declaration is basically a statement someone makes when they think they're about to die.
Right.
And in a legal context, it's admissible in court,
Oh, wow.
even if it would normally be considered hearsay.
Okay.
So it can be a really powerful tool.
And in this case, it was a big part of getting a conviction.
So even while she was clinging to life,
Right.
she was giving crucial evidence.
Wow. Yeah.
It's amazing. And speaking of amazing,
Yeah.
she lived.
I know, that's amazing.
The doctors were stunned.
Yeah.
What do you think kept her going?
Well, survival is
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah.
It's this mix of physical and psychological factors.
Right.
I mean, you could talk about the physical strength,
Yeah.
but you also have to look at the mental and emotional resilience.
Right.
The will to live,
Right.
to see her kids again,
Yeah.
just holding on to hope.
It's mind-blowing that not only did she survive,
Yeah,
she became a police officer.
I know, right.
That's got to be more than just a career choice.
Right.
What do you think was driving her?
It is a really fascinating question.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's taking back her power,
Yeah.
turning her experience into something good. I mean, she could have become disillusioned by the system,
Totally.
but she chose to be a part of it,
Yeah.
to try to make a difference.
Right.
And that says a lot about her.
It's truly remarkable.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how much did her experience as a victim
Right.
shape her approach to being an officer?
Right. Yeah.
Did it give her a different perspective?
Yeah.
A better understanding of what it means to protect and serve?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it totally did. In fact, the blog post quotes her saying,
Oh, wow.
I wanted to become a good cop.
Hmm.
There's a difference.
Wow.
Just that statement alone
Right.
really suggests that she knew there were problems.
Yeah.
And she wanted to do better,
Right.
to be the officer that she needed,
Yeah.
but didn't have.
Yeah. That's such a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Makes you think about the impact that
Yeah.
even just one person can have.
Right.
But one good cop can't fix everything.
Absolutely.
We're still talking about these deep-rooted issues.
Yeah, these systemic problems that we need to address.
Katrina's story is inspiring,
Right.
but it's also this stark reminder
Yeah.
that the blue wall of silence,
Yeah.
it's not just a few bad apples.
Right.
It's a cultural thing.
Yeah, we need like a complete overhaul.
Right.
Better training, stronger accountability,
Yeah.
a real shift in mindset.
When you say training,
Yeah.
what would that look like?
Well, I think it starts with just admitting there's a problem.
Right.
For so long, nobody even talked about the blue wall.
Right.
But things are starting to change.
Yeah.
People are more willing to have these tough conversations.
Right.
And training can't just be about teaching the law.
Right.
It needs to be about ethics,
Yeah.
about empathy,
Right.
recognizing and addressing bias,
Yeah.
and creating a culture where it's safe to speak up
Right.
when you see something wrong.
It's about changing the culture from the inside.
Right.
But what about holding people accountable?
Right.
I mean, how do we make sure that officers who abuse their power
Yeah.
or take part in this code of silence,
Yeah.
how do we make sure they're held responsible?
That's where it gets really complicated.
Right.
There are all these legal protections
Right.
that can make it really hard
Right.
to investigate and prosecute.
Yeah.
We need better oversight,
Right.
independent investigations,
Yeah.
and a willingness to hold officers accountable,
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that victims feel safe coming forward,
Right.
knowing that they'll be taken seriously
Right.
and that their reports will be fully investigated.
It's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by how big the problem is.
Right.
But then you have stories like Katrina's,
Right.
and it gives you hope.
Right.
Like if she can find the strength not only to survive,
Right.
but to fight back,
Yeah.
to try and make things better,
Yeah.
then maybe we can too.
And that's what resilience is all about. It's not just bouncing back.
Yeah.
It's using what you've gone through
Right?
to create something positive,
Yeah.
to help others,
Right?
to push for change.
Katrina's story is a testament to that.
It is. Yeah.
She didn't let what happened define her.
Right.
She turned it into fuel.
Yeah.
She became the symbol of hope
Yeah.
and strength.
It shows that even in the darkest times,
Right.
there's always that little spark of light,
Yeah.
a chance for growth and change.
And I think that's why her story is so impactful.
Yeah.
It's not just about the horrible things that happen.
Right.
It's about the strength of the human spirit,
Yeah.
choosing hope instead of despair,
Right.
taking action instead of giving up.
And it's about knowing that change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's this long, hard process.
Right.
But it's a process worth fighting for.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
The attack, the blue wall,
Yeah.
her survival,
Yeah.
her becoming a police officer. But there's this one more piece I think we should look at.
Yeah.
The blog post mentions Brevoort projects.
Right, right.
And I think it's important to know where Katrina came from,
Yeah,
the kind of environment she was living in.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the Brevoort houses
Yeah.
are a public housing development in Brooklyn.
Okay.
They've been around for a long time,
Right.
and like a lot of public housing,
Yeah.
they have a lot of problems.
Right.
Poverty, crime,
Right.
not enough resources.
Right.
It all creates this feeling of vulnerability,
Yeah.
and it makes it so much harder to escape bad situations.
So even before she met Irvin,
Right,
she was already facing an uphill battle. It's
Yeah.
like the system was working against her.
right,
And then she ends up in this abusive relationship
right.
with a correction officer,
Right.
someone who's supposed to protect her.
Yeah, it's just layer upon layer of injustice.
Yeah. And that's what's so important to understand here. Domestic violence doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
Right,
It's tied to all these other problems,
right,
like poverty, lack of education, and healthcare,
right.
racial inequality.
We can't just focus on individual stories.
Yeah.
We have to look at the big picture,
Yeah.
at the societal things that contribute.
Right.
And that means we need a multi-pronged approach,
Yeah.
one that addresses both the individual
Yeah.
and the system.
It's about building a support system,
Right,
a safety net,
right,
so people don't fall through the cracks,
right,
giving people resources, education, opportunities,
right.
so that everyone has a chance to thrive.
So we've talked about the systemic issues,
Right.
the need for training and accountability,
Yeah.
and fixing the root causes of violence.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this is a story about human resilience.
Absolutely.
Katrina's journey is amazing. She went through so much,
Yeah.
but she never gave up.
Right.
She fought for her life.
She rebuilt herself.
Yeah.
And she's dedicated to making a difference.
Right.
And that's something that speaks to everyone,
Right.
no matter who you are or what you've been through.
Yeah.
We all face challenges,
Yeah.
but we can overcome them.
Right.
Katrina's story shows us
Yeah.
that even when it's really dark,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
Yeah.
And there's always a way forward.
Yeah, it's like that saying,
Yeah.
we're all capable of amazing things.
Right.
Finding strength we didn't know we had,
Right.
and using our experiences for good.
Right?
Even small acts of kindness,
Yeah.
bravery, speaking up
Yeah.
can make a difference.
And sometimes those
Yeah.
small acts can spread out
Right.
and create a wave of change bigger than we could have imagined.
I love that.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Katrina Cook Brownlee's story,
Yeah.
I'm just left with this feeling of awe
Yeah.
at her resilience
Yeah.
and this renewed sense of wanting to do my part to make the world a safer place.
Yeah. I agree. Katrina's story is powerful.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even in the face of so much darkness,
Right.
the human spirit can still shine through.
Right.
And it's a call to action,
Right.
to be the light,
Right.
to be the change we want to see.
Right. It's really amazing the kind of impact these deep dives have.
Yeah.
They're not just about getting information. It's
Uh-huh.
about like understanding what it's like to be human.
Right.
You know, all the complexities of life
Yeah.
and finding hope even in the darkest places.
Yeah.
What really resonated with you about Katrina's story?
It's tough to pick just one thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, her surviving after being shot 10 times is incredible.
Right.
But I think her decision to become a cop
Yeah.
says so much.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would have been so easy to walk away,
Yeah.
to be angry,
Yeah.
to be resentful.
Right.
But she didn't.
Yeah.
She wanted to try and make things better from the inside.
Yeah.
That takes serious courage
So,
and commitment.
It's like she's fighting for the version of law enforcement
Yeah.
that she deserved,
Yeah.
that she needed.
Yeah.
And that's what makes her story so powerful
Yeah.
for our listeners.
Right.
It's not just about the horrors of what happened or
Yeah.
the problems in the system.
Yeah.
It's about the possibility of change,
Yeah.
that one person can make a difference.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And I think that goes back to that question we were talking about.
Yeah.
What would it take to make stories like this
Yeah.
the exception,
Right.
not the rule?
Yeah.
It's a tough question,
Yeah.
but it's one we need to ask.
Right. And there aren't easy answers.
Nope.
We have to admit how complex it is.
Yeah.
Have real conversations.
Yeah.
Be willing to challenge the way things are.
Right. And I think a part of that
Yeah.
is realizing that change starts with each of us.
Yeah.
We need to hold ourselves accountable,
Right.
look at our own biases,
Yeah.
and speak up when we see something wrong.
You know, when I think back to what we've talked about,
Yeah.
There's this one thing Katrina said that I just keep thinking about. She
Yeah.
said there's a difference
Right.
when she was talking about being a good cop.
Right.
And I think that applies to all of us.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what we do,
Yeah.
we all have the power to choose to be better,
Right.
to be kind,
Yeah.
to be empathetic, and to take action.
That's a great message to end on.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're not just bystanders.
Right.
We have a choice.
Yeah.
We have a voice.
Yeah.
And we have the power to make things better,
Yeah.
one decision at a time.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was definitely heavy,
Yeah.
but also really insightful
It was.
and inspiring.
Yeah.
We hope you keep thinking about all of this.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Keep pushing for change because in the end,
Yeah.
it's up to all of us
Yeah.
to create a world where we don't need stories like Katrina's anymore.
Absolutely.